Superheroes. Everybody has a favorite. Everybody who reads comics has that one or few characters that they just cannot get enough of. And in their minds, they're that character's biggest fan. Yeah, right. That being said, most of the time we are precious with our favorites. Sometimes we have headcanons for them where we only take on and accept the things that we love the most and outright reject the things that don't fit into our often narrow view of the character that we love so much. And sometimes this can go even as far as people getting really mad when things don't happen with their characters that they like. And the most extreme version of that is taking to Twitter and asking for heads, if you will.
Ooh,
I
this,
recently just saw Steve Orlando getting taken to task from a Scarlet Witch reader who was unhappy with certain things that Steve Orlando was doing. Now, this person was absolutely insane, but ask them, they are a major fan of Scarlet Witch. So the question here is, are we fans? Is the fandom too connected to our favorite characters?
I'd almost argue fandom is too connected to the things that they're fans of. But I think specifically in comics, sometimes, yeah, yeah. Especially if you're gonna be one of the ones that's like, I'm gunning for, I don't know, I'm a huge Taskmaster fan. I've seen one of those accounts before, you know, where it's like you got to be a little realistic. You can enjoy the medium and you can enjoy comics, but you also have to be realistic that not everything is going to go the way you in your head have devised it to go. You might be a huge Taskmaster fan, and then the Black Widow movie came out. Probably not your best time ever.
Now you're no longer a Taskmaster fan.
Yeah, and then Thunderbolt is coming out. You're going to be a Taskmaster hater when that comes out. But you just need to be realistic with this stuff. These are characters that are outside of your control, and there's no use being abusive online or abusive to yourself based on a fictional character. You can always read the old stuff.
Well, and that's sort of the thing too, is the these characters have such a long and varied history that at a certain point things are going to repeat themselves, things are going to change, things are going to contradict themselves. The Bible contradicts itself. You know.
Are we equating Steve Orlando's Scarlet Witch with the Bible?
I mean,
Yes.
look, the Christian fundamentalists are too into their fandom. I'll say it.
Like a religion is okay. All right, religion is fandom according to Cale.
Cale is religious. I just want to say, so he's.
I don't think that's a wild thing.
Look, putting aside the most extreme end of this, like obviously, our message is don't be shitty online because that's shitty, regardless of anything else, right? It doesn't matter how much you think you love Scarlet Witch. There's no excuse for, being awful to Steve Orlando or anyone else over any other character. It's just ridiculous. So just talking within the purview of a little bit more normalcy, right? Um, I think that there is a bit of an issue with fans being too precious with their characters. And some of that is just human nature, and you're never really going to get around it. And that's just how people are. Speaking for myself, I love these characters to death, but I don't actually think that I get too hot about anything that happens in the books anymore. And I'm not sure that I ever did because I didn't start with comics. So the Spider-Man that I know best didn't start in comics. The Batman that I know best didn't come from the comics. So there's really never been a time where the version of any character that I started knowing was from the comics. And when I jumped in, they were really, really different. Spider-Man on the show, the animated series, was a broke, science teacher or whatever, or a college student, whatever the hell he was.
Yeah.
And Mary Jane was a Hydro Man clone and all that bunk, right? I'd start reading the comics, and this dude is married and he's working for Iron Man and living in the Avengers mansion. Totally different.
You also came as a wrestling fan too, and you've learned not to get too invested in characters.
I mean, I get plenty invested.
Yeah. I do you think this is more of a younger generation thing?
No.
No. Okay.
No. I think it's just a, you get to a point where you expect something from a character, and you forget, quote unquote, that there are people behind it, and different minds contributing to this long standing uh monument, you know. um I know for me, in that same vein, I've had three moments that I can think of off the top of my head where two of them are Spider-Man related. uh One was Civil War, where Peter reveals his identity. I threw the magazine down and I said, I'm done. That's the dumbest thing I've ever read. I'll never. And then I kind of peeked back in. Oh, what's going on here? And then I saw that Spider-Man and Iron Man were fighting, and I went, all right, I better check this out, see what the deal is. Ah, yes, of course. Spider-Man goes back to the right side. I'll pick it up again.
Well, that's one of those things with being a fan of comics. It's like being aware that these things are cyclical, and that what might have upset you immediately. Look at the Superior Spider-Man thing. That's something with Sean. You mentioned that, and it will. The pieces always get put back together at some point. So being aware of that, and maybe just realizing, maybe this is my time to, I don't know, read Fantastic Four instead of Spider-Man.
I was pretty pissed.
Yeah, you were.
This was my that,
How
that
would
was
you
my
know?
that
You've
was my
talked about
second.
it. You've talked about how pissed you were.
That was my second moment. Was Spider-Man dying and Doc Ock taking it over. I was furious. And then I kind of started picking it up again. Oh, maybe it'll be different. Let's see what's going on here.
In terms of plot, if plot's a problem, like sure you can not like the creative part of it. Like you might not like the art that's on a book at a certain point. That's fine. But in terms of the plot, sometimes they're looking for that reaction for you. That reaction of outrage or shock that might turn off some fandoms and get them, riled up because they're invested in these characters. If you stick it out a little bit though, there might be something in there for you.
Yeah, what was your third?
The third would be Tim Drake in the New 52, written by my arch nemesis and major villain, Scott Lobdell.
Oh no.
He, annihilated decades of character history based on the New 52 mandate. And he put out a big video saying, it's comics, get over it.
Okay, so that is that. So my thing is always this. Yes, every creator is going to come on board. They're going to tell their story, and that's cool. Creative freedom and all that for sure. But at the same time, I go, hey, man, these characters existed before you, and they have a history before you. So it's not like I don't expect them to do what I want. I just expect them to write the character in front of them. And if that doesn't happen, then it makes me kind of go like, well, so what was the point of this? I mean, there are certain books on the stands right now that I feel that with at the current moment, where it's like, this doesn't feel like the character that I'm used to. Now, I'm at the point in my time reading comics where for me, I just drop a book. I'm not going to, like, yeah, we'll get on Pals Pulls, we'll talk about it. But in my personal life, Wonder Woman not being a book that I can read doesn't matter. I do not care.
Yeah.
And I think we all have to be able to get to a place where we can say that, because otherwise it gets ridiculous. Tom King, as this example, is a great guy, but that I don't need to love everything he does. And I also don't need to hate him because I don't love everything he does. Doesn't matter.
It's also not a commentary on Tom King in this example as a writer.
Right.
There are several things that Tom King has done that we both like and don't like. Nobody bats 100. And there are writers who, we think are pretty awful that have actually done some decent stuff.
But even in terms of like being a fan too, like those stan accounts, so and so reads Iron Fist. I doubt there's any Iron Fist fans like that out there. But like, you can be invested in a character, and like just all of that still exists. Like all of the stuff you've read that you've liked still exists. You can still have that investment. Sure, maybe the future of the character might not be the best, but like spreading that positivity of why you like that character seems like the more right thing to do, or best use of time, instead of being like, hey, let me just bash accounts that like this current direction for the character. Jeez, I wonder what Aquaman fans thought when Aquaman lost his hand. I don't. The internet really wasn't around at that point, but you can imagine like something similar like that would have happened.
Probably did.
Yeah, they might have had message boards at that time.
Yeah, this isn't new.
Yeah,
This isn't new.
No.
This is a very old phenomenon, and you can see it in the letters pages of old Marvel comics, just how angry people got about this, that, or the other.
Back in the old Nerdist comics panels days, back in 2012, Len Wein used to and I say that because Nerdist is no longer around. But Len Wein used to co-host that podcast, and he would show up as a panelist, and he would talk about the old days of editing stuff like Thor. And he would have people write in, oh, I want this thing to happen. Are you kidding me? I can't believe you guys did this. So they'd say, okay, we'll change it. We'll do this. And then the next week, somebody else would write in, oh, I can't believe you've done this. We need it to be this way. And so they change it back that way. And every week, somebody would be upset. And Len Wein's takeaway was always, fans don't know what they want. They just want to be entertained. And that outrage means they're paying attention.
I think that is ultimately the company line. Not that Len Wein doesn't believe that. I'm actually sure he does, because all the old editors and head honchos believe that. If you've ever heard Dan Didio talk, if you've ever heard Joe Quesada talk, even Jeanette Kahn has talked about the fact that one of the best ways to gauge fan interest is fan anger. The best way to tell these companies that you don't like what they're doing with your character is to not buy the book. DC saw that, we were unhappy with Batman when Immortal Hulk outsold it, because that shouldn't happen. And yet it did, because people just weren't happy. It's apathy. When you're like, you know what? I don't even care anymore. I'm not buying this. I'm done. That's the worst thing that can happen to any of these companies. So it doesn't matter if you dislike Paul, or you feel like, Spider-Man is a cuck, or any of that garbage. As long as Amazing Spider-Man continues to sell as well as it does, all of those things will be at play, and Marvel will never press the big red button, which is putting Peter and MJ back together, because they don't have to. That's it. So understand that comics will probably never fully please you, but we're not in it for the full please. At least not in the moment. We're in it for the please over time, right? Our time with comics will be long. You'll get your moment. But what are the moments at which you were the most upset with the direction of your fave character, when DC or Marvel bungled them and you had that anger in you? Let us know. Share it in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Till next time, take care, guys.